Today I'm going to share with you how I make these cellular cookies in celebration of Lab Week. Okay, so here is some basic sugar cookie dough. It's very plain. This one I made from scratch, but you can also buy the pre-sugar cookie pre-packaged dough in the store, which I've also done. The next thing you're going to need is some food coloring. And I used red and blue to make the purple dough, which you section off about a quarter of the dough and then add probably 20 drops of the blue food coloring and 10 drops of the red food coloring until you mix it up and you've got a dough that looks about like this color, purple. Then you have to chill the dough. So you can see this has been chilled. It's like kind of hard. And this has been chilled. The reason you need to do this is so that you can handle it without the shape being distorted. Okay, so let's get started. Just gonna section this into threes. I'm going to roll it. So you get your Play-Doh skills out here. Unless you want really big cookies, you're going to want to have pretty thin rolls. So I think I took too much. You want the purple dough to be about 1/2 inch in diameter. And you want 3 of them. Because we're going to make neutrophils. Typically they have around 3 lobes or more. They don't have to be exactly the same. If the dough is room temperature, it'd be harder to handle it like this way. And they don't have to be perfect. There. Okay, now I'm gonna stick these back in the fridge because as you handle them, they warm up and then they become a little more squishy and they change shape a little bit too easy. So I'm going to stick them in the fridge. The silicone mat comes in really handy. Okay, so your dough has to seriously be a lot like Play-Doh or it's not going to work. So I had to add a little flour to this dough just to make sure it was not too sticky, that I could play with it. So I've got a little bit of flour here. I'm just gonna use to keep it sticking to my hands too much. And then I'm gonna grab about as much dough as I used to make the purple tubes, which are gonna be the nucleus of the neutrophils. Anyway, so then you take your plain white dough and you want to flatten it out. Like so. You kind of want to make it long. Long and a little bit rectangular. So you want to roll it out until it's about the same length as the purple dough was, which is about the same length as this silicone sheet. I have 2, by the way. Okay, so I rolled it out into approximately a rectangle shape, and I'm going to refrigerate this. Okay, let's check our chilled dough. So we've got our cytoplasm and our nuclei here and here. Let's try this. So we want to add our nucleus. You don't want them to be totally touching each other with the dough, otherwise they'll look like they're all one. So I'm going to kind of roll them all over each other. Like so. Okay, squish them together a little bit and then use the, if you have silicone, you can use that to shape it into more tubular shape. And roll it out a little more. Okay, then we're going to re-chill that. Okay, so I actually had to put this in the freezer because it was really hard to cut. Take a serrated knife, and then you're going to want to carefully cut through the dough so you don't distort the center, because you want to see the cross section of the lobes. See? So that's kind of what you want it to look like. I think I need to stick it in the freezer because it's still not cutting the way I want it to cut. But you get the idea. Then when you put the cookies down this way and decorate them, you get your white blood cell. All right, these are going back in the freezer. Another thing you can do is take your white cookie dough into whatever size cookie you want to make, approximately 1-inch balls. Roll them into kind of ball shaped. Place it on your cookie sheet. Then take your purple dough and pinch off just a little bit, like maybe, I don't know, like a 1/3 of an inch in diameter. Whoops. Put it on there, on top of the little, and put it on top of the little white ball. Add 2 more. Like so. Then you can take white sugar, and I found this awesome pearlescent sprinkles sugar. At the grocery store. And what I'm gonna do is add a little bit of the sugar sprinkles to the white sugar, just so we have a few purpley granules, purpley and neutral granules to make neutrophils. Okay, so it kind of looks like that. There. So that's approximately how much sugar I want to use. All right, now you're going to take a flat glass, and I want to get it a little bit greasy on the bottom so the sugar sticks. I'm dipping it into the sugar, and then I'm going to mash down on the little cookie that I'm forming. There you have a neutrophil. Voila. But let's say you want to make an eosinophil. Take your dough, your white dough, roll it into a 1-inch ball, place it on your cookie sheet. Grab some of the Nucleus dough, just a little pinch. Then you have red for eosinophils. You dip your bottom of your glass into the red. Sprinkles. Press down on your cookie. And you have an eosinophil. If you want to have monocyte, you can use a little bit of purple. If you want to make basophils, I've got blue. You can mix them up and do different shapes. So I'm gonna go ahead and create some cells while you watch. There we have it. We have our basophils, eosinophils, neutrophils, and I even included a band and pseudo-Pelger-Hewitt. I only put 2 lobes in the basophils because typically they have 2, and I put a lot of heavy sprinkles on the basophils. And so there we have it. We're ready to stick these in the oven. See how they turn out. Next, I'm going to make some lymphocytes. I'm going to make these a little smaller because lymphs are usually smaller unless they're reactive. Okay, and then I'm also going to make some monocytes. So I'm going to make those a little bigger, and I'm going to make them misshapen, so they're not going to be perfectly round. All right, so next we're gonna do the nuclei. So I'm just gonna take one, a little bit biggish purple glob of dough for the lymphocytes. That. They look like eyeballs. And then for the monocytes, I'm going to take an even bigger amount. I'm not going to turn them, I'm not going to make balls out of them. I'm just going to kind of tidy up the edges and then flop them down. Not too much. You don't want too much that it actually covers up the bottom part. There. Then I'm going to use the sugar from the neutrophils to squish the lymphs down. And for the monos, I'm going to use a little bit more of this. Give it the ground glass appearance. There. Put a little more on these. You could even sprinkle a little bit more blue on these lymphs just to make them look a little more bluish. And the nucleus. Ta-da! Another batch ready to go. Okay, so here we have our cookies. And as you can see, we have our basophils, eosinophils, and our neutrophils. I'm going to try to make some blasts. So blasts are bigger cells typically, and they a very large nucleus. So I'm going to use a little more dough, make them a little bigger. All right, so there we've got our blast bases. And actually, I was going to say, if you wanted, you could make some really dark ones using dark dough. But so we're going to take a pretty good amount of our dark dough to make the nucleus for each of these. Flatten it out a little bit and then just lay it on top. Typically they have darker cytoplasm. So I'm going to use a little bit of the blue, and I'm going to mix some of the pearlescent sprinkles I have together. I'm going to mix those together. Kind of come up with a dark shade. I'm not trying to get the look of granules per se, I'm just trying to get a dark cytoplasm. Next, I'm going to make a few nuclei, just so they definitely look blasty. Got some little candies that I got from Easter egg decoration. They're like little purple and blue and different shapes. So I'm going to stick a couple of those in there. All right, there we have our blasts. Okay, taking my monocytes and my lymphocytes out of the oven. What did they look like? I added a few purple sprinkles to the monocytes. Next, I'm going to make something might grow some people out. I'm going to make Trichomonas cookies. So here's how I'm going to do that. I'm going to take the white dough, put it into a ball. Put one little dot in the middle of it. And then it's all about shaping. I'm going to use plain white sugar. I want to squash it down. Whoops, can't see. Squash it down. Then I'm going to make a little point on the end. And keep in mind that when cookies are baked, they're going to look a little bit more rounded off. So you want to make sure it looks real pointy on either end. Trichomonas. And there we have our trick cookies. Okay, so I added some sprinkles. I put little green jimmies and then a few little green sugar sprinkles on top of the Trichomonas. So the blast cells actually turned out really good using those little egg-shaped sprinkles. I don't know if you can see, there's actually like a little impression there. It looks like a nuclei. See that? Ha, pretty cool. So here is our finished platter of blood cell cookies. Actually, they're not all blood cells. But here we have a monocyte, neutrophil, basophil, eosinophil, blast, lymphocyte, and Trichomonas. Yummy.